Hello, everybody. It's Mike Yao with Savage Kingdoms role-playing game and Fire in the Head Productions. Doing another video here, doing the final installment of the Savage Kingdoms of the West, or the Savage Kingdoms of Astagonia series that I've been doing. That's had a couple people watching. That's cool. Whatever. I'm just going to keep doing these just to, like I said in the other video, the previous video, that at least it's an archive and people can click on them when they play a character from that certain culture or race or kingdom or realm or territory. And it'll give some insight, which is the whole point for these videos in the first place. So I'll try to do I'll try to make this in 35, 40. This one actually might even be shorter because the Gazetteer section doesn't have quite as much on them, and them being the Thorakki or the Thorakkians, either is correct. So page 40 and 41 in the Savage Kingdoms 3rd edition core rulebook. That is our iconic Thorakkian warrior right there, warrior hunter. I mean, they're all basically warriors. It's very warrior culture, very survival-based culture. So, a Thorakkian or the Thorakki, again, both well, a Thorakkian, plural can be Thorakkians or Thorakki. They kind of call themselves both. Where did their name come from, shall we start with, before I kind of read some of the stuff? Because I don't think it's ever in here in any of the book. It's definitely in the lore, but I don't know if I've published any of it yet. So, the Thorakki or the Thorakkians take their name from Torak. So they're one of their few gods they really have. I mean, they see spirits and powers and supernatural things and all sorts of things, particularly thunder and ice and horrible weather and that sort of thing. And perhaps even in the earlier days when they were just really coming out of caves and learning how to build fires, they probably saw the frost giants of their area as almost as gods as well. But anyway, back to the current. So the main god, if the main sort of named spirit or god of the Thorakki is Torak. And Torak is the god of the sun, also known as the blood god, or the blood red god, or the red blood. Anyway, you get the idea. So Torak, they believe, is actually the sun, or he lives on the sun. Perhaps this is his realm, but in some ways, quite directly, he is associated with the red sun. So in the Savage Kingdom's known world, or the Savage Kingdom's setting, it's a red giant. If it were a science fiction setting, it would be classified as a red giant sun. The people in this world don't really know what those classifications are. Perhaps they don't even exist in this particular universe, so it doesn't really matter. But just know that it is a red sun, probably about this, I always imagine it 3 or 4 times the size of our sun in the real world here, which of course is a medium yellow, whatever, between the giant and dwarf size star. I think I say. I suppose that might be right. I don't know. Whatever. So that's where the Thorakkians take their name. So you might ask, why are they not called Thorakkians or Thorakki? So, because the founding sort of chieftain, they have this great hero chieftain. He's almost like a demigod, really, at this point. His name is Thorak, and he was like the first kind of main real Thorakkian that really kind of gave their culture or race or ethnicity this identification as they are now currently known as. It's a wild, survival-based, very extreme northern people that really will even mate with trolls and giants, where like all other humans are just like, it'll happen, but they don't actively seek it like the Thorakkians do because of survival reasons. So anyway, his name was Thorak, Thorak, son of Torak, and he claimed he was a direct son of Torak, the blood red god, the god of the sun, the god of blood and violence and combat and that sort of thing. Another little note on Torak before I move on, and I'll probably pick it up again when I get to some like religious stuff, maybe with the Thorakki, is Torak. They don't really pray to Torak. So those of you who are familiar, I'm a big fan of the original Conan stories from Robert E. Howard, as a lot of sword and sorcery people are, and I think a fair number of us gamers in general. So they didn't really pray to Crom. Crom was their main god, but they didn't really, because it showed weakness that you were calling out to for help. They might curse Crom. Conan did quite colorfully quite often. So the Thorakki have a similar model. They don't really pray, at least in the sense that we pray, on your knees and looking down, in a modern sense of prayer. if they were to pray at all, they would be like, Torak, why have you forsaken me? Come. They'd almost curse him. In fact, that's usually how if they pray to him at all or exalt him at all, it is usually through a curse, almost defying him to come down and do something, sort of thing, and shows their kind of bravery. So, all right, enough of that. So I'm going to push on into the couple paragraphs that are in the little fluff text before all the game stats about the Thorakkian player character choice. So again, this is a player character choice. This is the last one in the series because I went in alphabetical order of the humans of Astagonia. And then I'll probably, if I keep doing these, I don't know, I'll probably do some of the non-human cultures of the West because I skipped Calendril and Lithalor and Thrimnor and Uldarak, some of those non-human realms of the Duragar and the Shi particularly. And then maybe in the east, I'll pick up the Sleer and Chennari realms and the Gajula and the Jan and the Rathkiri and that sort of thing. So, all right. Page 40. The epitome of savage and brutal, the Thorakki clans of the far north, well beyond even Scathia and near the ice wastes of Fragnir, virtually welcome interbreeding with trollkind, a trait most civilized men and women would surely abhor. I've just mentioned that. As such, they increase the physicality of their people, even at the expense of mental acuity and social approval. Most Thorakkians are raiders, marauders, mercenaries, and wild wanderers. More information about the Thorakkian clans and their brutal northern territories can be found in Section 6, A Brief Gazetteer, and I hate to admit it, that's only partly true. There actually isn't a section that's called, because there's not a realm called Thorakkia, but there kind of is if you go to like the little paragraph about the wastelands of Fragnir, which is part of the sort of the general icy, frigid subarctic to nearly Arctic area that they often wander around in the Gazetteer. So you can find something, but sadly, I'm not sure if I really overlooked it because I was literally listing realms and territories that were, yeah, I think I overlooked it. I should put it in Savage East. I didn't do it there either because of space and time, and also shoehorning a Astagonian thing into the Savage East kind of defeated the whole purpose of the Savage East, or at least the theme of it. So I didn't do that. So hopefully this video will be more valuable in that case. All right, so as you can see, brutal and savage live in the far north. They don't really care about being civilized and that sort of thing. They really care about survival, and that often means physicality, and that means if they breed with trolls, if they have so, and even giants that are more common in the northern realms, then so be it. So, right. Let's go to allowable callings that the Thorakkians may choose, player character-wise anyway. Bard, Berserker. So they're bards that also would be called scalds, probably in the north. They're pretty rare, actually, though. I almost didn't even list them as a possible calling, but, you know, it's there. Bard, Berserker, Craftsman, Gladiator, Healer, Hunter, Merchant, Noble, Pirate, Sage, Seer, Shaman, Sorcerer, Thief, and Witch. Those are the allowable callings of the Thorakkians. Attribute array. Thorakkian player characters must arrange their attributes of character creation using the following guideline. So it's the usual thing for humans where 3 of the 6 attributes are sort of favored and the others are just kind of normal. Favored means that you could start with a max of up to +3 and your absolute maximum you could cap off at +6 through advancement. Those favored ones too, you can start with no lower than -2 in that. It's just a cultural thing. That's just how it is. That's what all that represents. It's called world building and culture building. The other 3, so those 3 main ones, I'll just list those real quick. I don't know if you can see them on the camera. Is physique, vigor, and willpower. Kind of makes sense. They're in physicality, and you have to have pretty strong will to survive up there. So they're kind of, normal average attributes would be agility, intellect, and magnetism by default. All right, special abilities. So each human culture, ethnicity, race, if you will, subrace, gets 2 of these special abilities, and then they get 3 free skill specialties, which are basically another racial ability as well. And then you get favored talents and such. So I'll start with the special abilities. Number 1, cold affinity. Due to their territories in the extreme north, Thorakkians gain a +2 bonus to endurance rolls to resist cold or ice effects. There you go. +2, actually. Some of the other northern races get +1, which is pretty cool, but these guys get +2. They're way into the north. I mean, they're almost as far north as the Rathkiri on the Isle continent of Ragnagard. Coming up with the Savage spoilers. All right, special ability number 2, Despicable Spawn. Thorakki pay 2 points less for the Trollborn talent, as their culture does not abhor trollkind in the way that most civilized societies do. I mentioned that a couple times, and there you go. It is now established in a game mechanical sense. So 2 points less for that Trollborn blood talent. But not Giantborn. I didn't mention Giantborn, but that's a rarer thing, so that's why they don't really have a discount for that. All right, skill specialties. Thorakkian characters receive 3 free skill specialties of character creation that help reflect Thorakkian culture and virtues, just like any other human, but their list is different because that's how the game goes. And where's it at? Right there. I don't know why I'm showing you that because it's a lot to read in 4 seconds. So I'll just do like I did in the past videos. I'll just kind of mention a few of them. For example, they could choose animal handling bears, mammoths, or wolverines. Yes, mammoths exist in this setting because I love mammoths, and saber-toothed tigers because I love ancient settings. They still exist here. Or it could be athletics. Your special in athletics could be climbing, jumping, snowy terrain, or swimming. Let's see, I'll go down. Persuasion, intimidation. That's your only choice of, especially for persuasion, because I probably kind of obvious, I suppose, at this point. Endurance, resist cold or resist pain. And there's a few more. Let's see. Let's go with brawling. They can choose grappling, headbutting, kicking, or punching. And then melee weaponry. Their choices for specialties starting off are battle axe, great axe, maul, spear, war club, or war flail. Weaponry ranged: javelin, thrown club, or thrown hand axe. So you get to choose three of those specialties. So, and I listed 2/3 of them. Favorite talent. So again, like I've probably said in most of the other videos, favorite talent just simply means you pay 1 point less for the talent if it falls under your culture as favored or under your calling as favored. If talent falls under both calling and race, then yes, you pay 2 points less. As long as the talent cost is not reduced less than 1, you have to pay at least 1 point, unless it is specifically a racial ability, of which it will literally say. Favorite talent. So as you can imagine, they have a lot of battle talents. They're by far the most they have as favored. For example, Bashing Blow, Bullish Charge, Break the Wall, Berserker Rage, Fell-Handed, Heavy Hitter, Meat Shield, everyone's favorite title. Pugilistic Follow-Up, Shattering Blow, Shield Rush, Unarmored Fighting, Warcry, Web of Steel, Wolfpack Tactics, and there were several others as well. Favored blood talents: Demon Blood, Giant Blood, Lycanthrope, Bear. The reason Trollborn isn't listed there because it's listed up in the special abilities, and if you list it twice, it might get really confusing, and people might pay 3 points less for it instead of 2. So that is why it is a racial ability. Yeah, specifically Lycanthrope, Bear. So you could choose another Lycanthrope, but you wouldn't pay the 1 point less unless it was Bear specifically. Mystical favorite talents, mystical-wise, totem animal, bear, mammoth, or wolf. That's literally their only favorite mystical talent, the totem animal. Favorite social talents, champion, mountaineer, woodsman. Favored subterfuge, dirty tactics, hunter, raider, slaver. The other category of talent, like the miscellaneous category, grit, heroic strength, intimidating physique, night-sighted, and tireless. Cool. Favorite weaknesses. Again, a favorite weakness is kind of like favorite talent. So if it's listed in your race or even in your calling, and you choose that weakness, you gain a bonus point for it to apply towards talents or to skills. So there you go. Right. Favorite weaknesses for Thorakki are disfigured, infamous, kinslayer, obsession of battle or destruction, savage, tainted, or too tall. So as you can see, they can become, they kind of allow, they don't care about, they don't really have they have a very gray morality. And if they fall to what civilized people might call evil, they don't really care that much. They're all really about survival. Any others worth mentioning? Kinslayer, disfigured, famous, too tall, to savage, obsession, battle, or destruction. Those are probably all pretty self-explanatory for this culture. Starting languages. Your native tongue is Thorakki or Thorakkian, a language only quasi-written with simple runes and therefore more oral-based. So it's really an oral-based thing. But some of the more, I guess, intellectual of the Thorakkis, particularly say they're skalds or bards, perhaps even a chieftain or two, might learn to adapt the rune system of the Scythians to write their words, their sound out their language through symbols. But mostly it's oral based. If your intellect is -1 or higher, you may choose one of the following as well: Scythian, Old Valkyrie, Troll Speak, Giant Speak, or Dragon Speech. So Scythian, Old Valkyrie. Old Valkyrie was the sort of the root language of the original northern peoples. There were the Dracs and the Volcari. Probably they might have been even one person a long time ago, but there's no records, at least in the canon of the lore of the game. You can do what you want, of course, if you run it, but that connect the two. So right now, it was the Dracs and the Volcari. So Old Valkyrie is the old language of sort of the Scythians in that kind of area too, which also would have bled off into some of the areas where the Volcari or where the Thorakkians currently live semi-nomadically in the far north. Troll speak, giant speak, dragon speech. I guess that makes sense. Simple name or sample names or simple names. Actually, their names are fairly simple. Some of them. Sample names would be Drak, Dragnar, Gorak, Nulfar, Torak, Vord, and Wolfgrim. Wolfgrim. Male. Those are male names. Brun, Draka, Goreka, Grimda, Nufra, Torga, and Wulfa. They're all female Thorakki sample names. And again, the sample names are really cool because you don't necessarily have to choose a sample, like literally one of those names, but the cool thing is, I think anyway, is that it tells you how the language sounds, how their naming schematics typically are. And so I give 7 examples in each of each gender in each race or culture. Really for that reason. You could obviously choose one of the names directly, but they do represent common to uncommon names. None of these would probably represent like a really rare name in that culture. Thorakkians make use of son of naming schemes plus the occasional kinning earned through mighty deeds such as the Reaver or Giant Slaver. So as you know, kinning is basically an epithet or a nickname, so that's added kind of on the end. It was very much a very old Viking thing to do. The Celts did it. Actually, a lot of cultures, a lot of ancient cultures did that. So, for example, you could be Drak, son of Goraka the Reaver, or just Drak the Reaver, or Gorak, Giant Slayer, or Gorak, son of Volfar, something like that, or Torga, uh, daughter of Wolfa, something like that. So there you go. Cultural item. So you may choose one of the following items of character creation, or 2 by spending a luck point to complement the rest of your gear. So just like all the other races, although we have different options here for the Thorakkians. So here, I'll just list them really quick. A piece of mammoth tusk worth 2d20 silver coins. That would be rolled. So, like, if you were if you chose that as a player character and you were to like try to trade it or sell it, the GM normally would roll what it's worth. It's like I think I've had a couple players try to like, hey, mine's worth 17. I'm like, well, that's cool you did that, but you don't really know. It's I probably wasn't clear here in the design. Oh, you could run it either way you want. But my intent was, if it does come up, then the GM rolls the 2d20 or whatever in this case. Possibly carved with crude runes or images. So it's more than just the ivory. It's got some workmanship in it too, which is why it's somewhat valuable. A semi-preserved human head. Most Thorakki characters I've seen always choose this one. Not always, but often. Gain +1 to persuasion skill rolls when intimidating others. So this is just this big head you've got tied on your girdle, your belt, or slung over your, however you want to fluff it. And if you show it, you gain another +1 bonus to your intimidation check. So very Conan, which is why I like it. A mammoth or Arctic bear pelt gives you +1 to endurance rolls to resist cold effects when worn. Makes sense. Scale from a worm, possibly Volnithrax. He's the big ancient fire worm that may or may not even still be alive. He's close to 500 years old. It dwells in the Ice Claw Mountains. +1. That scale grants +1 magical arts air rolls to magical arts air rolls for ritual spells. So Cap or tunic made from bones and teeth, +1 to persuasion rolls to intimidate others. So there's another item that does a +1 intimidation bonus, which is cool. Small figurine representing the blood god Torak, +1 to brawling if using Berserker Rage. So when you go Berserk, it gives you another boost to brawling. This figurine, I guess, perhaps you believe that Torak's power is in there. Torak is watching you as you are wearing it. Frost Giant's Battle Axe. It's damage. It's deal 15 crafting skill roll to repair, but you need a physique of +7 to wield, according to the Frost Giant stats, and I even put it in right there. So yeah, which is virtually impossible but not impossible. So a Thorakki with Giant or Trollborn could eventually reach up to +7 physique if one so chooses. And then you could properly wield the battle axe. Otherwise, it's the usual penalty for every point short of the minimum of physique for certain weapons. It's -2 to the die roll. So if you had a physique of +6, you can still wield it at -2 to your die roll, which isn't horrible. Because the maximum damage of Frost Giant, I don't have it listed here in the cultural item section, but your GM could simply look in the Frost Giant stats and look at Frost Giant's battle axe. I think Frost Giant's Battle Axe is the same as a human-sized Great Axe as far as maximum damage, which is 30. It might be 35, actually, but I think it's 35, actually. Anyway, it's 30 or 35. It's a lot of maximum damage, and the armor piercing is 3. I think it might be 4 for a Frost Giant's axe. I'm not sure, but anyway, not the purpose of this video, so moving on. A war club made from a giant's or mammoth's femur. So you use war club stats, but -1 armor piercing. So kind of cool. Does decent damage, but it's -1 AP because it's just basically just a big bone. A captured slave, male or female. So yeah, you can start with a captured slave. The slave has agility +0, physique +0, vigor +1, intellect -1, magnetism +1, willpower -1. General code of honor. So Thorakki, like all the other cultures. So here we go. Just so you're not staring at the side of my face all the time. Break it up here a little bit. Cultural code of honor, right there. Bottom of page 41. So again, these are sort of guidelines to play someone from that culture, particularly morally and ethically, and honor-wise, and tradition-wise. So yeah, you don't have to play exactly like that way, but it does. You can gain bonus luck if you stick to your code of honor really well, and the GM might award you like +1 to luck or +1 to renown for doing such every couple of levels, as the book suggests. All right, general code of honor for Thorakkians: thrive in battle and raiding, for the clan and tribe must survive. Blood, combat, and death pleases Torak, lord of the blood-red sun. Adapt and survive, winter is forever. Slay or rout all enemies, taking prisoners and hostages only when truly necessary. Rely not upon sorcery and magical tricks, save for those performed by a war shaman. Right. Sorry about the accent. So really quick again without the accent. So thrive in battle and raiding, for the clan and tribe must survive. So in other words, you're not fighting for the fun of it, although a lot of Thorakkians probably enjoy battle and glory. You're fighting because the way in real life, like this human species really is fighting for survival or the gaining of resources, of course, as well. And the Thorakki will do that. They will raid and maraud for resources. So yeah, so it's not always survival. But yeah, it's also to gain resources. Blood, combat, and death pleases Torak, lord of the blood-red sun. Kind of goes with the first one. Adapt and survive. Winter is forever. So that's a cool little thing. So it's saying that you must survive and you must adapt. You may have to adapt quickly. Big blizzards coming in, and now all the fish and all the halibuts and are gone, or the seal or the mammoths are now driven away 30 miles away. Who knows? Adapt and survive. Winter is forever, and that's reminding the Thorakki that it's almost always winter where they are. There might be a couple of months of respite in the deep summer, and that's about it. Slay or rout all enemies, taking prisoners and hostages only when truly necessary. Because Thorakki don't take prisoners generally. One, it's sort of it's kind of a thing. It's an intimidating thing. It's like enemies here that Thorakki do not take prisoners. You gotta don't want to deal with them. You don't want to be raided by them. But really, the other reason and the more practical reason, they usually can't afford to feed another. Why take a slave if you can't really feed it? It's just that person. So yeah. So that's why they do not typically take slaves, but although as you might have noticed, the slaver talent is favored. So, meaning that they don't do it very often, but there occasionally is a Thorakkian that kind of is an enterprising Thorakkian that literally will do that, and he or she will take it upon themselves to capture that. If they capture a slave in battle, they must take care of that slave. No one else is probably going to do it. And then often they'll use the slave, of course, to serve them, or maybe they'll sell it, sell the person back to his or her culture. Particularly if it's someone of renown, they might can get a ransom for the person. Let's see, where else am I? The last one: rely not upon sorcery and magical tricks, save for those performed by a war shaman. So yeah, they don't. Almost like praying to Torak, they think a lot of Thorakki in general think that sorcery, which is usually just kind of a broad term for really any kind of magic to them, it's kind of weak and feeble. It's kind of a tricksy way out. I mean, if you really have to use it, or you're always using like your conjure flame and you cast it upon your axe and you're wading into battle with the flame of the axe and you're seeing it's from Torak, that's might be kind of cool. But more like, more like tricky stuff like beguiling and slumber, and that they would probably look more down upon that as kind of uh, cheesy and sort of cheating in a way. So unless performed by a war shaman, like I just said, or a shaman who uh, even if the shaman of the clan, who's well respected, knows a few what they would consider cheesy spells, they probably allow him to kind of get away with it because they don't want to get cursed by the guy. So, but for the most part, that is the case. All right, so normally I would move to the Gazetteer chapter. Actually, I will, but there's not the true entry that I spoke of early for Thorakki or Thorakkians. A bit of a fail on my part. But I'll see if I can find a few things in here, and then we'll wrap up the video. So, the giant wood forest. Here, I'll start with the giant wood forest. And besides, I'll show you this kind of cool graphic, because this is kind of a bleak, icy snowscape that you can imagine the Thorakkians living in, even though this is actually really supposed to be more like northern Scathia. But the Thorakki will raid down into Scathia pretty often, and northern Scathia just eventually kind of gives way to some of the Thorakkian territories. There's not a very definable border up there, so it gets a little crazy. So anyway, the giant wood forest. Speaking of northern Scathia or Scathia, the giant wood forest is there, and it's called that. I think I said this in the Scathian video, but I'll say it again. So, the giant wood forest is not only because a lot of giants used to dwell there, not as much anymore, but also the trees themselves are gigantic. These massive, kind of like a northern version of redwoods exist there. Kind of so yeah, pretty massive. Some of them can grow up to about 400 feet tall, or at least 350. So the giant wood forest located in northern Scathia and beyond, this evergreen woodland lives up to its name. Twofold is not only many of the ancient trees quite literally what I'm just saying, gargantuan in size, but giants live here as well. Trolls, ogre trolls, and even the occasional frost giant. I'm reading that because the giant wood forest in northern Scathia, north beyond that, it kind of gives away to where some of the Thorakkian clans might raid down into, and sometimes even live for a couple of seasons if they're not being bothered by any Scythian warriors or anything. If they're allowed to kind of exist there, and not and like I said, the Thorakki people, the Thorakkians in general, are pretty violent. Obviously, they're pretty violent, pretty savage. But they're still people, right? So if they live in an area and they're doing okay on resources, they may not. And there's a Scythian village or Malovia, some other village across the river there they can get to relatively easily. They might just leave it alone if there's no reason to raid them if they're doing pretty well, or maybe they're even kind of worried that that village may have some warriors that might even rival our people, which is they probably consider a rare thing, but they're not entirely stupid. So keep that in mind when you're role playing them and game mastering them. Here's another entry: the Dregner Ice Waste. So I should just show you guys a map. Let me see if I can put a map on screen really quick. I know I've done this many other times before. So here we go. All right, so you see the map right there, the master map of Astagonia, the continent. So see in the kind of the middle top there, the central north, the ice waste of Dregner. Dregner is actually a frost giant word. And you can see the, what is that, the Frozen Isles, and then you can see where the Thorakki clans are. So the main Thorakki clans are in that area, like way kind of northwest of Scathia, and then way north of the Iceclaw Mountains, and then some of them wander way off into the ice waste of Dregner right there, which is was once very heavily populated by frost giants. Not as much anymore in the Age of Man. A lot of things like giants and dragons have kind of waned. Giants tend to be still not common, but it's more common than dragons. So, so I'm going to read about that because I just lost my place. There it is. I found it again. Because that has something to do with the Thorakkian people. So, Dragner Ice Waste. Allegedly located north of the central regions of the Iceclaw Mountains, this is a rugged and frozen land of frost giants and worse. Dragner, in fact, is said to be a frost giantish word referring to a hero god of theirs who slew many worms and titans. So, Dragner was kind of like a hero chieftain, perhaps even a demigod of the frost giants, right there. What else can I? Here, I'll read about the Iceclaw Mountains really quick, and then I'll probably just close the video because, again, since I didn't have a dedicated entry for the Thorakki territories in the Gazetteer, I'm just kind of grabbing a few little geographical regions just to kind of let you know something about it to give you some inspiration about the Thorakki. All right, Iceclaw Mountains. That was a big big mountain range you probably saw when I showed the map to the camera. Though not quite as long as the Blood Rocks, most of the peaks or tors of this range are taller and mightier, all of them capped in snow and ice. The mountains of the Iceclaw range serve as territory for trolls, frost giants, and even the infamous elder worm Volnathrax, once dwelled in the rugged, half-frozen eastern reaches of this famous range, and some say still does. The tallest peak of the Iceclaws is said to be nearly 4 miles high. So there you go. So right, around 20,000 feet or so. So not ever size by any means, and but we're talking kind of Rocky Mountains ish size in general. And one little note there. So it talks about Volnathrax being this sort of famous ancient or infamous elder worm. He's an ice worm, a frost breathing dragon. So his it doesn't say it in there, but his sire. Or his or her side, because dragons and Savage Kingdoms are actually asexual. They're neither or both gender that would, however you want to look at it. I guess neither is probably technically correct. So, Volnathrax's sire, I guess, if you will, was Glorindarax. So he was probably the most famous dragon of all Savage Kingdoms lore, except for perhaps Chinathrix, or also known as Fu Chen from Taikanara. But Glorindarax is probably actually slightly more famous or infamous than even him. So, yeah. So just a little side note right there. I think that's gonna do it. 33 minutes, and we muddled through it. So that's the end of the human realms of Astagonia. We ended with the Thorakki right there, which I think is a fitting end. A lot of people do seem to be enjoying playing Thorakki or Thorakkian characters, which is great. So thanks for paying attention, guys. If you made it this far, like and subscribe and share and get word out about this YouTube channel. I'm trying to do a little bit better with it. And the Savage East is coming out soon. The companion book to the Choral book, the Savage Kingdoms 3rd edition core rulebook. So Savage East will be out soon. It's actually at the printers now. I'm waiting on my proof copy, and so once I sign off on that, then it'll be going out to the Kickstarter people, and it'll be up for sale and everything. So, all right. Thanks for paying attention. Talk to you guys again soon.